Welcome to Never Too Late for Fitness Radio, bringing baby boomers proven strategies and innovative products for getting fit, staying fit, so you can live a longer, healthier, and happier life. Here's your host, best-selling author and fitness advocate, Phil Ferris.
Welcome to our show. Are you a baby boomer who's frustrated by the results you're getting with your current fitness program? If you've ever wondered why some baby boomers lose weight and gain muscle faster and easier than you do, then this show is for you. A recent article in JAMA Internal Medicine states that only 35% of baby boomers exercise regularly, and 52% have no fitness routine at all. Now, there's lots of reasons that baby boomers have abandoned exercise, including a slower metabolism, muscle atrophy, which often leads to weight gain and loss of mobility. Others stop exercising because they just don't see results, or the results they used to get when they were younger. That's where Fitness Genes comes in. Fitness Genes takes the guesswork out of losing weight and adding muscle by providing a personalized fitness and nutrition program based on your DNA. Joining me today to explain how baby boomers like me can leverage their genetics to lose weight and gain muscle faster and more efficiently is Fitness Genes CEO and co-founder, Dr. Dan Reardon. Dr. Reardon is a medical doctor in the UK, where he worked in the emergency room for 10 years. He's also a certified personal trainer with over 15 years in the fitness industry. Dr. Reardon is a fitness writer, two-time author and science editor for Muscle and Fitness and Flex magazines in the UK, Europe, and Australia. Thank you, Dr. Dan, for joining us today.
Thank you very much for inviting me. I'm very pleased to be here.
Well, that's great. Well, it's kind of interesting that Fitness Genes was launched in 2013 by a team of genetic scientists, a nutritionist, and you, a medical doctor and personal trainer. How did this group come together to form Fitness Genes?
It's an interesting story. As you've already said, I'm a medical doctor by background, and I've always had a massive interest in fitness. And as a result of my interest in fitness, I've always been perplexed and interested and fascinated by this concept of how genetics plays a role in sports performance, what you look like, all of those sorts of things. And in October 2011, I was at my best friend's wedding, and my other best friend, Stuart, was there. And Stuart is a PhD geneticist, and his partner, Samantha, is also a PhD geneticist. And we were having a conversation about some research that they'd done where they had found certain gene variations to be prevalent in certain types of athletes. And it was when they sort of told me this information that I said to them, well, that's really interesting, because I wonder if I knew that information about people, whether that would enable me to personalize training, workout plans and nutrition plans. And so we started a period of research and development stemming from that conversation, and that ultimately led us to launching Fitness Genes.
Okay. Now, as I mentioned earlier, most baby boomers aren't exercising, and only about 35% are doing it regularly. Perhaps you can enlighten us. How can Fitness Genes help baby boomers start exercising and get better results from the fitness program?
Interesting. One of the things that I've always found fascinating, that I find particularly fascinating about baby boomers is, especially with certain demographics, particularly with females, is that this demographic, they're a group of people who have often done many diets. They've done lots of different diets in their life that ultimately leads them to be in a position where they're carrying slightly more weight, and also generally very negative about following exercise regimes and following diet plans, because so many things in the past haven't worked for them, or they've worked in the short term, but ultimately they're less fit and they're generally heavier now. The advantage of a product like Fitness Genes is the information that we deliver is not based on fads, it's not based on current diet trends, it's not based on what's currently popular in the market. It's based on what is going to work for you. So we remove the guesswork from exercise, and we remove the guesswork from nutrition. So the advantage that this has is that somebody who's perhaps done multiple diets in the past and tried multiple ways of working out and just nothing has worked, we're removing that risk of things not working by only delivering information about things that are going to work.
Okay, well, I mean, that's because a lot of people, and I've been guilty of this many times. My workout routine is something I read in a magazine or something a friend was doing, and we go work out together. Now, one of my workout partners is 15 years younger. He's 6'5" and has a more slender frame. And what was working for me didn't work for him. And when we did stuff that he liked to do, didn't work for me. So eventually we stopped working out together. And it's like, well, it should have been obvious that we had different makeups and we were trying different keys to the wrong house. I mean, it was frustrating because the effort was there, but we just couldn't get the mutual benefits that we were looking for.
And that's typically what happens. Approximately 50% of the variation between people and their physical performance and body composition is genetic. So, and the frustration arises when, with the same level of effort, one person gets results and the other person who's following exactly the same plan doesn't. And it's why understanding genetic variations and exercise and nutrition based on your DNA and your genetic blueprint is so important.
Yeah. Now, you've got genetic testing and, the DNA, and then you've got the personalized program that's generated by a computer. I'm not the most techie kind of guy, so it sounds like your program is pretty complicated. Maybe you can explain, how would someone go about using the program and how complicated really is it? Yeah,
sure. So people go to our website, fitnessgenes.com, and that's where they purchase the DNA tests. And the DNA test arrives in the post normally a couple of days later. The test contains a tube that you spit into, and in your saliva there are cells from your cheek, and it's those cells that contain the DNA. The tube then gets sent back to our laboratory where we extract the DNA from the cheek cells, and that then gets run through our sequencing system, which delivers the results that then get inputted into our membership website. And then we have some computational models that ultimately use your genetic results and environmental information to construct your workout plans and your nutrition plans, and also tell you what the actual gene results are. So the consumer process is very simple, but yes, we do have a very technical model in the background that actually crunches all the data to deliver the appropriate workout plans and guidelines and nutrition plans and guidelines based on the customer's goal, but using their DNA and environmental information as a framework for the plans.
Okay, but let me ask you, because I know there's I don't know how many different genes that we have, but I know there's a number of them, thousands of them. So how do you know which ones to pick out for your particular program so that you don't overwhelm people? How many genes do you sample or provide feedback on?
Yeah, that's a great question. So there's approximately 20,000 genes in the human genome, and there's approximately 3 billion SNPs. And it's actually SNPs that we look at. So we're looking at these things called single nucleotide polymorphism. So they're essentially just where there's one slight change in the DNA, but it basically alters the function of the gene that gets produced. So just for people listening so they understand DNA and genes, the best way to think about DNA is that DNA is like a recipe book, and genes are like the individual recipes within the recipe book. And genes code for proteins, and proteins obviously make the body function. Now, the SNPs, or the genes that we're interested in, are the ones that produce proteins that have some sort of interesting effect on the body that we can either relate back to exercise physiology and nutrition and nutritional physiology, or where there's research that shows the effects that these genes have. So we look at genes, for example, that have an effect on how fast you metabolize caffeine, or how sensitive you are to insulin, and therefore, how much carbohydrate you should consume, what your sensitivity is to things like saturated fats and all these sorts of things. So the genes that we look at are the ones where there's very good research that currently exists, or research that we're currently undertaking with our academic partners, which are some of the biggest universities in the world, or discoveries that we're making within our population or within our user base. So yes, there's 21,000 genes, and we're only looking currently at 43. However, these are the ones that are most significant to what we're focused on, which is exercise and nutrition.
Okay. So I'm not getting my total DNA profile. I'm getting the ones that the parts that make a difference in how I eat food and how I exercise, build muscle.
Absolutely. It's the genes and the SNP variations that are most relevant to those goals and to what we're trying to achieve.
Okay. Now, and I know that you've got different programs to match different people's fitness goals, so it's not one program fits all. So what are those programs, and why is it important on the front end to kind of differentiate based on someone's goals?
Well, I mean, ultimately, people become empowered by their goals. So, when you think about exercise and nutrition, just saying to somebody, follow this and you're going to get healthy, it's too indeterminate. It's very hard to set a goal of getting healthy. But when you have a goal of losing fat, building muscle, getting lean, losing weight, running a marathon, because there's a tangible end point, or there's a point that you're trying to get to, it becomes much easier for the consumer to be empowered, and for us, it enables us to construct packages that will actually help people get to those endpoints, but obviously using the DNA as a framework for it. So it's very important to actually have these different approaches and package things in different ways to help people get to the goal that they're trying to reach.
And can you briefly describe what the programs are?
Yeah, so we have different. There's a different array of programs. So for some, we have programs that have people working out at home using bodyweight exercises. We have people going to the gym and using gym equipment. We have people doing high intensity interval training, general cardio, different types of stretching, and then within these training plans, people will be trained at different volumes, so different sets and reps, different frequencies, so different numbers of rest days, rest within the training session, how fast they execute certain movements, how much of different components of exercise they incorporate into their training plans. So yeah, there's lots of different ways that programs get constructed.
Okay. Now, Phil, I do my DNA, send it to you, and I get a fitness and nutritional genetic plan back.
Yep.
So maybe you could walk us through some of the specifics of what we would look at and how the information would be transformed into recommendations and ultimately actions that someone might take.
Yeah, sure. So within the members area, we deliver the results of the individual genes that we're testing for, and so people can really dig into understanding what the gene results actually mean and what impact that potentially has on their life. But we also deliver workout programs and nutritional recommendations. So the workout programs, they typically will be over 4 weeks, 8 weeks, 12 weeks, and it's a day-by-day count of the exercises that you should be doing, the weights you should be lifting, the cardio you should be doing, the HIIT you should be doing. And with regards to the nutritional program, what we do is we focus on macronutrient ratios. So we tell you exactly what your percentage of carbohydrates, proteins, and fat should be. We tell you how many meals a day you should be consuming, how many snacks you should be consuming, and then sort of real specific items, things like, are you okay? Are you genetically lactose intolerant? Are you sensitive to saturated fat? Are you sensitive to salt? What your ratios of carbohydrates should be. Should you be consuming additional folic acid? All of these sorts of things.
Okay. I noticed in looking at some of the information, there was you look at muscle type, and then that determines the type of workout you do. Could you explain that just a little bit?
Yeah, so there are certain genes that we look at that have different effects on different muscle fiber types. So, for example, one of the genes that we look at is the ACTN3 gene, and this gene codes for a protein called alpha-actinin. This particular protein has an effect of signaling fast-twitch muscle. So people that carry this gene variation will naturally tend to be faster and probably more powerful individuals. Because this might be because of anabolic signaling into the fast-twitch muscle, but also improved recovery of the fast-twitch muscle. So when we understand what a consumer's goal is, by knowing the results of this particular gene variation and knowing what they're perhaps naturally better at or naturally predisposed to, it enables us to define what their workout plans should look like just by having that simple level of information.
Okay, so if let's say I have a high degree of fast twitch muscles, and the program, if I do a program that is long and slow and heavy on endurance, that would be kind of counterintuitive to what my muscle fiber is. Is that correct?
Yeah, there's other factors that you have to consider, but ultimately it's about understanding you basically need to understand what you're playing with. So let's say for example you're somebody who doesn't produce any alpha-actinin. So theoretically you don't get a lot of fast-twitch muscle activation, and you want to be a sprinter. That will completely alter how you construct a training plan, because obviously the entire plan needs to be focused much more on ensuring that you're getting as much fast-twitch muscle activation as possible and as little slow-twitch muscle activation as possible. So it's not so much about pushing people into a bracket and saying you can only do this and not this, but actually what we're trying to do is just understand what is the goal of the consumer and then using the genetic information to help them achieve that goal. Okay.
And then that's around the exercise part of it. What are some of the elements that you look at in the nutrition area that if you can give a specific example of how information or recommendation would impact the nutritional aspect of that they would get?
Yeah, sure. One of the most popular nutritional genes that we look at is there's a number, but one of the ones that people always talk about is the CYP1A2 gene, which is the gene for caffeine sensitivity. Because everyone sort of really wants to know how they can make their daily living better. How can they be less tired, more alert? How can they sleep better? How can they get up in the morning and be much more with it? And caffeine is something that or coffee is something that people are very reliant on. Getting up in the morning, having a cup of coffee, thinking when their energy levels fall through the day, they should drink more coffee. But actually understanding how fast you break down coffee has an effect on knowing when you should be consuming it in the first place. And is it something that will have a positive effect on maintaining energy levels through the day? Or are you at risk of having energy slumps as a result of being a fast metabolizer of caffeine? So caffeine sensitivity is one of the interesting ones. Another interesting one is a gene called FTO, which is a gene that it was one of the first genes that was found to have an impact on people's risk of obesity or being overweight. And actually, when you understand this particular gene, it gives you an understanding of how people are able to control or how they're not able to control their appetite, because this particular gene has an effect on something which manages appetite regulation. So again, is another gene that people are very interested in. And actually, when we know the results, we can actually really steer or deliver information to people that's actionable to help them achieve their goals.
It seems like, and I read some blog posts and from people that got their results back, and what a lot of them said was, "Oh, now I get it." It's like this aha moment of, either why I've been getting good results doing something, or why it seems like I'm hitting my head against the wall, trying to do something that really isn't appropriate for what I've got. And there was a lot of aha moments in there.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's because this is not something you can just read up about, because it's going to be different for each person. So
that's absolutely true. That's absolutely what happens. You always tend to find that people, it is almost like a eureka moment where people will say, oh, now I get it, now I understand. Now I understand, the reason for this, or the reason that did work or didn't work. So we get some incredible, feedback from people who really appreciate kind of getting this information now and being really empowered by what they need to do for the future.
I guess another aspect, you were talking about, the female population and the having multiple diets, and I've worked with a number in this area, and one of the things they have is they kind of start blaming themselves. And even though, and the thing, it's like, oh, it's not my fault. I was trying the wrong plan, and it wasn't a matter of effort or motivation. It was, I had the wrong map that I was trying to follow. And
absolutely.
To get that bird, it's not you.
And there's a really interesting, really sort of interesting saying, because the common statistic that gets quoted is that 95% of people who are on diets fail. That's the general consensus. However, what is actually true is that 95% of diets fail the people following them. And the reason they fail is because they're not following a diet based on them. They're just following some, random hyped up diet from the media or something that a friend of theirs follows. So, absolutely. When you start to commit to personalization, and people understand, that perhaps there are certain things that have happened in the past that is a little bit out of their control, but now they understand that they can actually get control of it. It's incredibly empowering for the individual.
Yeah, because people always ask me, what's the best diet? And I said, if it's working for you, then that's a good diet for you. But every diet has people that have had success on that diet. Otherwise, it wouldn't be around. It's not for everybody. Not every diet's for everybody.
Yeah, no, that's completely true. And it is about identifying what is the right diet for you, and the way to discover that is with a fitness genes DNA test.
Okay. Now let me shift it to the baby boomers, specifically. Besides losing weight and gaining muscle, which are kind of the two primary focuses of the program, what other health benefits might a baby boomer expect from going on a program like Fitness Genes?
Well, I mean, the benefits of if we think about what are the benefits of resistance training, and what are the benefits of eating healthily. Resistance training, when you're doing it right, you're going to lose body fat, you're going to increase muscle tissue, which has a knock-on effect of improving bone strength, and improving overall metabolic health. Potential for hormonal optimization. So for men, having much better testosterone, and for females, having much better regulation of progesterone and estrogens if they're at the right age, or if they're postmenopause, much better testosterone regulation. There's the effects that it has on keeping cholesterol down, the effects that it will have on helping regulate blood sugar, good digestive health. There are so many implications of exercising. So many benefits of exercising the right way, and really achieving a good body composition. We could go on for days talking about the benefits. There are so many.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's the people that have been successful on a fitness and nutrition program. Probably one of the biggest things they'll say is they look younger and they feel younger. They can move
Absolutely.
better, and if you move better, you move more. And so that
for sure.
So that's kind of the net of what the program can provide, and the fact that it's geared towards them means they're more likely to stay with it because they'll see results, which means they'll get their benefits faster and longer. Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely.
I got kind of a tactical question. So I got the program, and also I have a question about a specific exercise or a nutritional recommendation. How do I get answers to my questions that may not be self-evident in the information I get?
Well, we have a really good community actually. We have a very good sort of help desk and customer support desk where you can ask questions to. We're very engaged in social media, and we have a very, very good community in social media. I'm incredibly active in the social media groups, so people can get to me directly. And in fact, it's not uncommon for me to hand out my cell phone number to customers, just because I like to have that level of customer interaction. So so through our social media channels, through our help desk, anything that consumers don't understand, we're there, and very happy to help and answer questions.
Because I from the questions I saw on your website is there was pretty quick response time about questions about what about this, what about that, have you checked that, or we aren't doing that yet, but we will be. So it's an update of where we're going. So it sounds like you're pretty engaged with your customer base to find out what's next. So
absolutely,
that's great.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we try and stay very engaged with our consumers and with the community. They're essentially guiding us on what they want the product to look like and how they want to be receiving the information. So we take it very serious. The relationships that we build with our community.
Okay. Dr. Dan, I'm sure that I have some listeners out there that have been thinking about starting an exercise program. Given that 52% of baby boomers aren't doing it now on a regular basis. Can a baby boomer who's just starting out and just starting an exercise program benefit from fitness gains? Or do you have to have years of exercise experience before you can benefit from it?
One of our fastest growing categories at the moment is people who have never exercised before. And actually you could argue that people that have never exercised and who have never followed a healthy eating plan are probably the people that will benefit most from a fitness genes test, because we're giving them the information up front that this is what you need to do. There's no trial and error. This is just what you need to do, and this is how you're going to get results.
That's great. Well, Dr. I really want to thank you for your time and your passion for fitness and bringing this to fruition so that baby boomers like me don't have to worry about the guesswork, can be focused on the right path. So I'd like to thank you very much for being on the show today.
My pleasure. Thank you very much for inviting me. I've really enjoyed it.
Now, if our listeners want to get in contact with your company and get more information, where would they go?
So they can go to our website, which is fitnessgenes.com, or they can follow us on Instagram, which is @fitnessgenes, or my Instagram handle is @danreardon. We're also on Twitter, which is @fitnessgenes, or I'm @Daniel Reardon on Twitter. And we also have our Facebook page, which is facebook.com/fitnessgenes. So we're on all the social media channels, and as well as the website fitnessgenes.com.
And I've been there, and they have a lot of good information on all of them. So if you are interested, I recommend that you do connect and find out if this is right for you. So again, Dr. Dan, thank you for joining us, and have a great day.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
You've been listening to Never Too Late for Fitness Radio, hosted by Phil Ferris. To learn more about the guests or resources on our show today, or to listen to past episodes, go to nevertoolateforfitness.com.